stay in Canada had taken us from Vancouver Island through the mountain scenery of British Columbia to the cities of Calgary and Edmonton in Alberta, across Saskatchewan and Manitoba into Ontario. We drove along the northern shores of Lake Superior to Sault Ste. Marie, then along the northern channel to Espanola, across Manitoulin Island to board the ferry to Tobermory. From there, we headed down to Toronto and Niagara Falls. Approaches to the Skyway Bridge. It was an early autumn afternoon as we headed down Queen Elizabeth Way on our drive to Niagara Falls. Our good friend John Hindman was our guide and host for the occasion. Having parked the car, we entered Queen Victoria Park and Gardens on Falls Avenue, on our way to the Canadian edge of the Niagara River, for our first look at this famous landmark. Evidence that fall had come was apparent by the beauty of this maple tree in the park. This horse chestnut tree looked splendid in the afternoon light. Our first sighting was of the American Falls and the small Bridal Veil Falls on the right. There has been a substantial build-up of rock at the base of the falls during the past 25 years. It is considered that if the build-up continues at the present rate, these falls may well deteriorate to a steep rapid in less than 100 years. The observation tower on the right affords a view of the falls from the American bank, while Niagara Parkway on the Canadian side has many vantage points. On the American bank, tourists in yellow raincoats view the might of the falling water from the Cave of the Winds at the base of the falls. The Rainbow Bridge connects Niagara Falls, New York with Niagara Falls, Ontario. As the Maid of the Mist sails past the falls, we were able to get some appreciation of the height and power of the water as it cascaded over the cliff face. Leaving the American Falls, we moved round to the right, passing Terrapin Point and the Cave of the Winds, to view the Canadian Falls, or as they are more commonly known, the Horseshoe Falls. From our vantage point on Niagara Parkway, we were able to get a good long look at the Horseshoe Falls, although the mist created at the scene tended somewhat to obscure a large part of the face of the water. Since 1678, the Horseshoe Falls have moved back 50 metres and have changed from a relatively straight line to their present shape. The American Falls, except for the collapse of Prospect Point in 1954 and the removal of loose rock from Terrapin Point in 1983, have not changed dramatically.
You guys going to sing song all of them?
Yeah, that's great.
Who he is, John?
This is Dusty Bodner, my cousin.
And he's our tour driver. We stopped for a quick look through this beautiful old stone church at Mount Carmel, a short distance up from the falls. Inside, we viewed the magnificent stained glass windows, one of the main attractions of this complex. The hammer beam roof trusses and the heavy wooden carvings and furniture were of great interest to me as I moved around the interior. It seems that you can't go too far on any tour without having the opportunity of buying gifts to take home. We headed off on the bus with Dusty once more.
Islands. This is a recreation area for boating. They have paddle boats here that can be rented by the half hour. They have trails for hiking, 2 swimming areas, picnic areas, general relaxation area, and it's all open free of charge to the public. Now this is what happened to 3 men in a barge that broke blue and white overnight.
Dusty went on to explain how the barge, now called the Old Scow, had broken loose while being towed. It has been perched on the rocks above Horseshoe Falls since 1918. Fortunately, the men on board thought to open the dumping doors underneath, and it grounded. Following an ordeal of almost 20 hours and a daring rescue by Breach's Boy, the men were saved. Limestone Terraces form the bed of the river above the Horseshoe Falls, and the river drops 60 feet as it flows across this area to the crest of the falls, creating a whitewater effect. A ride down the inclined railroad brings us to the brink of the falls. The flow of water over the falls has been reduced to a mere 25% for 8 months of the year and 50% for the remainder of the year. Large quantities of the flow have been diverted for power generation. Although a close-up view of the falls is spectacular, we could not wait to get a look at the overall picture from the viewing platform of the Skylon Tower. From a vantage point over 700 feet above the river, we were able to get a bird's eye view of the falls and the landscape beyond. Situated above the limestone rapids is the control structure stretching out over the river to distribute the flow of water to the power station inlets. Moving to the left, we see Goat Island, which separates the Canadian and American falls. We also get some idea of the landscape on the American bank of the river. We took a couple of shots of the city from the viewing platform of the tower before heading downstream. We travelled downstream for some distance, stopping at the gorge opposite a small village. Some idea of the depth of the gorge can be seen here, together with the force of the water as it flows through the area known as Whirlpool Rapids. Inns and small souvenir shops can be found in abundance throughout this area. This authentic Indian craft shop abounded with souvenirs of North American Indian culture. The soft leather moccasins on sale were of great interest to Judy. About 3.5 miles down the river, we came across this massive whirlpool. The whirlpool is 120 feet deep. Much of the gorge at this point was part of an ancient gorge that had been filled in by glaciers and has now been re-excavated by the present river. The Spanish Aerocar offers a trip over the whirlpool. We were told it has never lost a passenger. Leaving the whirlpool, we went over to the Botanic Gardens to take a look at the floral clock. We were able to get a look at the workings underneath the clock while we were there. In the bus again, we returned to take a look at the falls from the Maid of the Mist. Equipped with blue plastic raincoats, we boarded Maid of the Mist 6 to take us out onto the river below the falls. We were taken in close to the American bank, and the problem now was to keep the spray of water off the lens of the camera. Maid of the Mist lives up to its name in this respect. Despite the enormous power of the water as it flows over this cliff, it is not sufficient to wash away the fallen rock of Tortalis at the base of the falls. The stairs leading up the cliff face were now quite visible, and the water cascading over the rock face at such close quarters was a sight well worth seeing. The Maid of the Mist departs from both the Canadian side and the American side, and takes us as close to the falls as we can get. We now found ourselves heading past Terrapin Point and to the base of the Canadian Falls. Judy finds a sheltered spot in the boat out of the spray. Heading into the roughest water at the base of the falls, the Maid of the Mist needs full power from its engines just to hold its place against the force of the water. In 1960, a 7-year-old boy named Roger Woodward fell from a boat above the falls wearing a life jacket. Miraculously, he was rescued by the Maid of the Mist. A reenactment of his ordeal can be seen in a movie at the IMAX theatre. Pretty soon we drifted back downstream past the American Falls and the Bridal Falls again, and it was now time to leave the boat and go and have a look at Maple Leaf Village, an amusement complex which seemed to be the centre for meeting and dining. We walked through Dazzleland, past the Family Fun Centre and Adventure Dome. We visited a waxworks and we dined at Wendy's hamburger joint before leaving for the rest of the afternoon. We returned that evening, parked near the IMAX theatre, and once more took the lift up to the top of the Skylon Tower to view the falls under lights. Unfortunately, the lighting, although colourful, was not very bright, and the mist created by the water obscured the falls to an extent that we were rather disappointed with the scene. So I decided to take a few shots of the street below and the surrounding city buildings. Before descending back to ground level, Judy and John decided to do some souvenir hunting in the many shops housed at the top of the tower. We found maps and, of course, many items of clothing to choose from. There were clocks, jewellery, handbags, and a vast assortment of items on display for the tourist. Finally, we left the tower and walked out into the night. We left Niagara Falls and headed for John's brother's place at Welland, where we were to spend the rest of that night before leaving Niagara Falls the next morning.